Tucked behind the Morgan State University campus in East Baltimore is a largely unknown piece of cultural and architectural history. Its name is Morgan Park.
The Morgan Park community is located adjacent to the Morgan State University campus in northeast Baltimore, known as the Baltimore City suburbs. Morgan Park is a significant community because Morgan Park was a community that was designed and constructed for African Americans. That may not mean much, but when you look at this within the context of this northeast Baltimore section, all of these neighborhoods that surround this campus legally borrowed African Americans from living in those neighborhoods.
When the local white community around it found out that they were building this community to support the black university and a black community for faculty, they rose up in protest. They tried to stop it legally and otherwise.
Many persons are not familiar with the Fair Housing Act, and that's an act that comes from 1968. And it wasn't until then that persons were able actually to sell their houses and even market to African Americans. But this happened 96 years ago. Morgan Park was founded in 1917, and these African Americans purchased these properties, they lived here, they rented out their houses, and places like Laurelville, which was right next door, did not allow them to live there and fought nail and tooth for them not to live here. I mean, they went to the Supreme Court level to fight this, and they went to the city and the county to have this property condemned so that the African Americans couldn't live here. So this was a very, very big deal, and the fact that this is still a thriving black community today is quite significant. I'm standing on the presidential lawn in Morgan State University's Morgan Park community. And on these lawns, it's a long-standing tradition that the Morgan Park community would have its picnics here annually. And all the members of Morgan Park would gather here with our president of the Morgan State University and his first family, as well as all the families that reside in Morgan Park and those that would come back even who no longer live here, and occasionally some students from Morgan who would also live in some of the residents here in the community would all gather here, and that's a very significant cultural tradition that still continues in Morgan Park.
The Morgan Picnic was an annual affair for the Morgan community, and they used it as a gathering place where all the community, children and adults alike, could come together and really feel the community in a sense. So you had really a community in microcosm. It was all here on the grounds of the president's residence.
Morgan Park is a part of the Morgan State University community, which makes it a historically black college and university community, and one of a kind in America. The Murphy residence is one of the most significant houses in the neighborhood. It's the largest one in the neighborhood, and it was designed by Albert Irvin Cassell, a nationally recognized African-American architect. And Dr. Carl J. Murphy called upon Albert Cassell to design this house. Dr. Murphy himself was the founder and president of the Afro-American newspaper, and his wife was the co-founder of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and the two of them were politically very important within the African American community.
Well, my history in this community dates back to when I was a child. Morgan Park is a place where my grandmother and grandfather lived. In fact, my grandfather built or had the house built in 1929, right before the Depression. My grandfather's name was Carl Murphy, married to Vashti Turley Murphy. He was the publisher of the Afro from 1922, when his father, John H. Murphy Sr., died, until 1967. And so that was at the height of the civil rights era. So many people came here to strategize about the movement, about the civil rights movement, and about the position that the paper should and would eventually take. In my hand is a picture of Morgan State College's commencement in 1958, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the commencement speaker. And also in this picture you see Governor Theodore McKeldin, my grandfather Carl Murphy, who was the chairman of the Board of Trustees of Morgan, and Dr. Martin Jenkins, who was the president at the time of the college. When I think about the history of Morgan Park and what it took just to build the houses here, that was a matter of civil rights because there were no African Americans living in this neighborhood, and it took a court fight to allow these homes to be built here and for people to move. And so you had in this community college professors and people who were very much in tune with the times. And so these were people who didn't just teach about civil rights, but they actually lived it.
Now the time has come. Time. There's no place to run. Time. Time.
When I look to the future of Morgan Park, I think I still see a repository of history that must be preserved. And preserved to the point that even when our city is talking about city and regional development, when our state is talking about city and regional development, these are the places that deserve an investment of public dollars because of what they mean to the city and to the state. And so as Morgan grows, I hope that so will Morgan Park grow and be what it was intended to be, and that is a part of the legacy of our institution and our city and our state.
For more information on Baltimore neighborhoods and full episodes of My Town, go to www.charmtv.tv.
Well, my history in this community dates back to when I was a child.
We are just an open community which trying to work and get our families the best we can.
There's a little stamp of each individual person who's lived here.
To put your feet where so many before you have walked.
That kind of thing sends chills up your spine.
Watch My Town, Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. on CharmTV.